Welcome back. It's that time again where I take a turd and polish it. This one's going to be a good one for the internets because when I did one of these type of bikes previously, there wasn't anything on the internet about it really at all. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a 1969 C2SS 120. There was also another name for him called a Roadrunner 120, and it's made by Kawasaki. This is the second one of these I've been able to find because I had recently done one when I saw this one on the list of Craig's for $300. I thought I should just go and nab it up. I don't know, do I need to cover that? Who knows? So it's got some ins and outs, but all in all it's a pretty complete little bike. It looks a little rough, but it's actually a little bit nicer than the other one I've already done. For example, the carburetor isn't stuck, and it actually has a throttle tube that might be original, and it actually has this choke lever, and it's also not stuck. So the previous bike I got looked like it had been in a lake for about 20 or 30,000 years. The carburetor in these bikes are actually nestled on down in this little side cover, which is not fun because every time you gotta change stuff, you gotta take this off and all the oil, because this is a wet side over here for the clutch basket. This all dumps all your oil out. But it's got a lot of good features still. Had a little lock for the steering neck. Of course, I don't have any keys for it, so somebody could potentially one day just lock me out of my own bike, I guess. The fork gaiters are actually still pretty supple, and it's not oozing out nothing. There is an ungodly amount of rust, but I already tested out a little section with some steel wool, and that seems to just want to come off. And the handlebar, I believe, is the original one, and I don't know, it's growing lichen on it or something, but I took a razor blade and it just comes right off. So, some other neat things about the bike. It's got the seat foam still there. It doesn't feel like it's gonna just totally explode and rot. So they sell these covers on eBay like everything. It's missing a few things, but we might not even need them. And anyways, we got some foot pegs. These are notorious for slipping off on these guys. They're all missing. Back brake drum is actually all freed up. So, oh yeah, and my last one didn't come with a gas cap. This one does have a gas cap, and it works. And the tank is actually pretty clean inside. Look at that. It's not actually rust, it's just got some varnish from the ethanol. So I think this is probably going to be a fun project. It's a two-stroke, and it normally has the oil injection, which has been deleted, it looks like. But you can just run the mixed gas, which is hopefully what they were doing. Best of all, it's got, I probably should have shown you that. It's got some compression. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's been maybe honed and re-ranged. Maybe there's a brand new piston in there. We'll just kind of tell ourselves that. Back tire held air. It's got lots of tread still, but something neat that's on these bikes stock, I think this one, there's either an off-road or a street one. One's called the TR 22, or I don't know, 22C, I don't remember. The other one's a C2SS and one's a TR something, I don't know. But they had two sprockets. a small one and a big one for off-roading. And then when you get done off-roading, you take the chain, loosen it, which sounds kind of like a pain in the butt to me, but you put it on the small sprocket, and then you take out a few links. There's a piece, like 4 links that would come out to make it match the new sprocket, and then you get higher speeds out of your little 4-speed. This one clearly doesn't have it though. I'm just showing you what this could have had. What else we got? Oh yeah, something weird about these bikes is that shift pattern is 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and then the 5th click would be neutral, and then it starts over 1, 2, 3, 4, neutral, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you ride regular bikes and then you jump on one of these, there's a good chance you're gonna kind of look a little bit silly. This is actually the air filter, not a carburetor intake. And the intake runs through all of the cases on that side, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 cases, 5 total. So when you do the engine, there's just a lot of different filleted pieces of motor everywhere. And anyways, so, oh yeah, got some customization there. So I'll go ahead and try to get some stuff done and do less talky and more show. So I tried to see if the spark plug would spark. Keep in mind there's no ignition system here. It's all been stripped just to be like a dirt bike. I kicked it a bunch, no spark was happening. So I tried a different spark plug thinking that one was shot, and it didn't spark. So I got out the shop manual. Yep, and cleaned off some of these wires. Found out that you need this white with the green stripe and this black wire that comes from the magneto down here. It needs to go to the coil. And if you look, we got this black one back here and this white one with the green stripe. So then I took it out of here, out of the connectors, to see if they were all boogered up, and they were. It was super corroded. So all I did was just uncorrode that, put it back together, went and kicked it a bunch of times, and then all of a sudden just started sparking. This is where the magneto is, or the points and all that kind of stuff that basically takes your electrical current and turns it into, from the crank, you know, and sparks it at the right time. So I think that might have just had some crap in it, or it could have been from, you know, whatever, the cleaning I did. Either way, we got some spark. I took out the gas tank because, you know, you can't use that. You got to clean that out. So let's see if we can't get in here and I'll show you some of this spark action. Let me get it. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see that crap. It's hard because I shake and I'm trying to hold the dang phone, but basically you can see that little blue light that lights up. So that means we're getting spark now. So we can basically just throw the spark plug back in the hole and probably just kind of ghetto rig up some fuel line to this fuel line and just see if the carburetor float's not stuck and just see what happens. Okay, I put a little bit of gas, 2-stroke gas, right on the piston before I put the spark plug in. So let's just crank on it and let's see if we get a few pops. You ready? Oh, I felt it in my foot, but I don't hear it. Woo! Yeah, she's alive. So now that we know she's a runner, I'm just gonna try and maybe hook up some ghetto fuel source, like my little fuel bladder thing here, the IV bag, and we'll just see if it doesn't want to just clean out the carburetor and have a little self-clean. Normally I pop the carburetor off, but as I mentioned earlier, the carburetor is actually under that case right there on the side cover. So that doesn't really take too much time, unless one of these guys snaps. And then it takes the rest of my life. So this is what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna put some gas into the bladder. If I can just make that somehow work without opening this and it runs, I'm gonna change the oil, throw everything back together, and just run it just like this. Just a $300 turd. And it'll probably be the best bike in the world. Probably run forever. Maybe not. So I couldn't really use the bladder or the IV bag thingy because this old fuel line is so freaking rock hard. It might be the original 1969, so I wasn't able to get the little tit or male into the female thingamabobber. So what I did do is I trickled it out of there into that hole for a little while. And it looked like the float was filling up because it kept taking it. Either that or it's full of gas in the crankcase, in which case it might all explode. Either one, it's a good time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some of the ether stuff and give it a little ch-ch down that hole. And we'll see if it won't pop off and wake itself up a little bit. Here we go. All right, boys and girls. Before we spray our little starter spray in there, you gotta open up the throttle. Maybe get to a point where you can actually spray it in there. Crank that puppy. Close that throttle. Put the choke on. Here we go. Alright, let's try to put a little of this guy down his throat. And jump on it real quick. Like. Man, that stinks. Nothing. Okay, next up I'm going to take off the side cover, access the carburetor so that way we can pop her off and see what's going on. More than likely the carburetor will need a rebuild. At least have the float bowl and the float valve and all that and the seat all cleaned. And then maybe we'll get some gas in there and we can change out this old crusty fuel line here. And then we can be able to hook it up to the bladder to run it better. These things were really cranked in here and weren't gonna budge, so I got out that guy and the Tanya Harding 5-pounder. Use the huge number, I don't know what that is, 3? Phillips 3. Stick that guy in there and freaking hit it with the hammer on the impact screwdriver and it busted them all free, didn't break a single one. So I'm gonna get all this off and I'll show you what's inside. So here's what was inside. Oh God, it stinks so bad. So this is where the carburetor is and this is the clutch basket. This is the divider. So this is oil side, this is gas side. When I opened it up, all this nasty old furniture polish type gas came out mixed with some of the crap I sprayed in there yesterday. This was all full of liquid all the way to about up to that screw, because when I took out that screw there, or maybe it was that one, whatever one I took out over here, freaking gas started leaking out of that hole. Maybe it was this one, might have been the one on the bottom, who knows. So it looks like the gasket ripped, no big deal. It looks like the person didn't use the Permatex, so we don't have to do the gaskets. Great, that's great. The carburetor actually doesn't look too bad at first glimpse. It's tiny. Look at my pinky, almost fills up the hole for the whole carburetor, just to give you a little perspective there. That's how tiny this guy is. See, that carburetor is like as big as my thumb. It's like a weed whacker one. So anyways, we're gonna take off this little, I don't know what they're called, banjo fitting. It's like the brake lines. Yeah, banjo fitting, huh? And the fuel line is just pressed onto this banjo guy. So we'll do all of that. We'll take the carburetor off and clean her all out. And then we got to put a new gasket on after we get it running. A bunch of other crap along the way. I'm talking too much. I got to shut up. Let's go ahead and try to get this guy off and then we'll take it from there. I'm not sure if you noticed this in my last little clip, but this little guy was just like sitting in here like so. This is like dried up silicone, okay? when silicone is stuck to a smooth surface, it just wants to come off when the gas hits it. So this is just floating around in here, this little chunk, and could have just gotten sucked in there and messed crap up. There's also this big old plug of, can you see that? Of silicone right there, shoved in this freaking hole. Oh goodness, so it's probably a good thing we didn't start this, because we could have had all this crap just sucked into the motor. So if you're out there and you're trying to stuff silicone in holes around a carburetor intake, don't do that crap. Just buy a rubber plug or something. But seriously, all they're doing is they're just plugging up these little tiny holes like this. Look at this crap. Why not get a rubber cap or something? Holy crap. So anyways, there's supposed to be a little rubber cap on this hole. I got this wrong. So the carburetor came off pretty easily. In case you have one of these and you want to do it yourself. This little side portal here, you shove a flathead screwdriver through, and there's this flathead right here. Loosen that guy up, and then undo the fuel line, and it should pop out. This doesn't have the 2-stroke oil pump, so that's blocked off right now, but it would normally be right there. And the secondary throttle cable for that the oil injector is cut, so none of that's even there on this bike. This is the second bike that I've done, one of these I've done, and both of them have had the same issue with this choke thing stuck in there. And on these bikes, this is actually called a fuel enrichment circuit or something like that. And anyways, most of us just call it a choke. And it's that little lever that you push to start the bike with, and it comes down to this little piston that lets either air come in or it blocks it so it sucks fuel directly up. And there is a little hole, let's see if we can show you right here, and that goes directly over there. So I'm going to try and spray some carb cleaner in there and let it sit for a little bit and see if it frees up. If not, then I'll just take off this whole line with the lever up there and take it inside and boil it in some water for like 20 or 30 minutes, and that'll get the broke down ethanol broke free, so it can let go of that little piston thing in the choke. So as of now, it did have gas in it, and it wasn't old gas. It's spilling all over me, and it smells pretty good. So that's the gas I put in yesterday. So far it looks pretty promising. I'm just going to go ahead and, after I get the choke or the fuel enrichment plunger thing out, I'll go ahead and take off all of this. We'll check out the float and the valve and seat and see what we can do with that to freshen her up. Those are some of the treasures that I'm finding in the carburetor. And at least it's coming off easy. Look at that. So I sprayed a bunch of carb cleaner in there and let it all evaporate away, and most of the stuff just comes right off. Pretty cool. The rest of this carburetor though is looking pretty clean. And I got that choke thing still stuck. She's not coming out, so we're gonna have to boil it. And the float came out though, and the float valve. So that's promising, but the valve was stuck closed, and so I had to finagle it to get it out. So I'm just gonna boil it and get all the crud out, and then everything should be able to come out easier, and we'll take it from there. Delicious soup. So the little choke plunger is still stuck in the carburetor. So I got it sitting outside, and in the meantime, it's soaking in carburetor cleaner. In the meantime, we're gonna clean up some of these bits, and I thought I would show you how I do it. So this is the float little hinge pin. So let me set that up and show you what I like to do. So I take the little hinge pin and I run it in my chuck in my little drill. And then what you can do is take some fine steel wool or a Scotch-Brite, works pretty well. And then you just hold this in your hand while you drill that thing and clean her up. Take it out, flip it, run it in the chuck so you can do the side that's in the chuck right now. So you can see it's all nice and shiny. It feels smooth, so cut down on that friction. With the valve seat, normally I take a Q-tip and put maybe a little toothpaste on there and polish the inside of the seat. I don't know if it'll work on this one because it's so tiny, but maybe if I take some of the fibers off a Q-tip, we'll see what that works like. So I cut the Q-tip in half and then ran it up in the chuck of the drill on a low setting. And then we'll put some metal polish. We'll try this instead of toothpaste this time. Just a little teeny tiny drop. I think it's clogged. Oh goodness. And then I'm gonna turn on the drill. I'm gonna put the camera down. Right inside that hole for a few seconds. So that's what it turned out like, a little bit black. So I'm gonna zoom in on that guy. So it obviously cleaned out a bunch. Let me shine it up and show you. There's round 2. Okay, we're gonna do a third round. Okay, there's the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth one I used on it. First 3 had the polish, second 2 were cleaning ones and buffing. What's cool about the Q-tip is you can see that point that it creates when you shove them in the hole under that high speed of the drill. Actually gets sucked into the hole and actually cleans and buffs the inside of the hole too. That's what she said. And there it is. So you can see that I can not shake my hand. It's a 1.5, but also that it's clean. Look at that. So I ran the main little jet tube thingy that the needle goes in up in the chuck. Low speed, it's on 1. So not a lot of torque. And then we take that and spin that in some sort of a cloth or something and polish it up. So this is what it's like a few seconds later. I ended up using this little kind of dusting terry fiber cloth. I don't know what it's called. Microfiber. And just spun it in there. A low torque setting, so if your rag gets caught, it doesn't rip your fingers off. That could happen, so be careful. And all those little fuel jets, little holes are all plugged with the metal cleaner. So you'll have to spray it out with a solvent or carb cleaner or something. But that was probably like 2 or 3 commercials on the radio before that thing was super pretty looking. There it is. I also took the Q-tip with some polish and got those holes all cleaned out. That's what she said. And I blew a bunch of carburetor cleaner through there. I put my finger down here on this and put the straw for the carburetor cleaner and buried it in that hole, and that forces these little tiny side holes to spray the pressurized cleaner out of those. And if that doesn't work, you can always get a wire. So what I did is I took some copper wire strands and put them on this keychain with other little pipe cleaners for my carburetor, kind of cleany set. Works pretty well, but she's a beaut. We're getting there. Next is the float. which has no gas in it, so that's good. But you can see it's got ethanol disease. So we'll clean that up with some metal cleaner and polish it. So we got that cleaned off with most of that crap with the carburetor cleaner. And now we're gonna polish it. So put a little bit of that on there. And then we just start rubbing it. That's what it was like. That's what it turns into. Nice, huh? So, came out pretty nice, except for I squeezed real hard and smushed that in with my thumb a little bit. Whoops. So it came out pretty nice though. Okay, next up we got these two little guys. This one here that looks like a, well, you know, a thing, is usually the secondary, which is like for idle. This other guy's probably the main jet. And they're both old and tarnished, so we're gonna do them the same. Put them up in the drill chuck, polish them, clean out their little holes, and then be good to go. There. No, that's not where you go. Getting full. Got the needle, and I'm gonna go ahead and spin that in the rag with some cleaner. There. See, it's got a little tiny lip on there. Sorry about all my shaking. So I got a piece of like quadrillion grit sandpaper. I don't know, maybe 1,000 or 2,000. We'll try to get that ridge out of there by spinning it through the drill on this. So it's still got a little tiny bit of a ridge. Well, that's all right. We'll put a petcock on there and make sure we keep it shut off when the thing's not running. I finally got out the little choke plunger. I had to run it up in the vise and just give it all of the power that I could. So let's get a light in there and see what that looks like, huh? Oh, sorry, this isn't gonna work out, boys. Oh, there we go. So it doesn't actually look too bad. It just definitely wanted to hold on to that plunger. Let me get you in here and you can see. This is the choke plunger. And this one surprisingly still has the little rubber piece in it. That's nice, because I've been spraying this with carb cleaner for about 50,000 hours. So ultimately it just took a good yank. So I'll have to polish this guy up. Yeah, and then we'll have to buff out the hole. That's what she said. Yeah, buddy. Stuff did an amazing job. You can see my smudges on it already, but look at how instead of having these, I don't know, vertical lines, it actually cut in horizontal ones. It's amazing. Stuff's called Zep Higher. Dang it. Bastard. Let's try that a little gentler, huh? Oh, that bastard. Decided to get back to my white trash roots and just use this probably 50-year-old gasket. Although it's hard as a rock and probably will break if I fold it and bend it, it doesn't have any cracks, and well, probably will do a decent job. Most of the time, you screw the pilot screw, that little guy we just put in, all the way until you feel it sink and touch the bottom. And then watch your screwdriver and come out 1.5, like this. Half, 1, 1.5. And usually that's a good place to start for most vehicles. So in the manual, float level adjustment. So we have to measure this to make sure that the float is set at the right height. It tells us here we got 17 and 19 millimeters from where the gasket sits on that lip to the top of the float thingy. So if we were to measure, what it's looking like from right here to right here. Okay, let me get you in here all close and we'll do this together. So what I got here is a little measuring stick. Okay, and let's see if I can't get this on the camera where we can both look at it real nice. There we go. Oh, we need it more like this. Okay, what would you guys say that looks like that might have been? Let me try doing something different. Let's do it like this. It looks like 21 mil, right? And our diagram said 17 to 19. So what I'd have to do is adjust the tang. That's right, the little poontang right here. And what I would need to do is I'd probably need to bend it up so that way this can sit lower. So we gotta tap out that pin. Set the pin somewhere where we don't lose it. Sometimes it's good to use the float bowl. We just take this guy out, and then we need to bend this thing up, right? You see that? It's hard with the light, huh? There we go. Just smush it a little. Let's see how that does, huh? So we come back and put him in there. Gather up our little floaty shaft. Let's see if we can do this on camera live. I don't think so. My other hand has to help a little bit. Okay. So now we got that all in there. Let's bring our measuring stick back. Oops. Let's take a look. What did that do? What do you think? Is that 19 or is that 20? Sorry about that freaking camera. Oh goodness. Yeah. What do you think? A little more smash? All right, let's do it again. Okay, I had to do that with the camera off because it just takes forever when I have to do it with the phone in the hand. All right, see if we can not get my hand. Come on, baby, there we go. So what are we thinking there? Huh? So I think that's probably close enough. Came out pretty good. I think this carburetor should hopefully run pretty well. Let's button it all up and put it in. This is the choke little fuel enrichment circuit plunger. Now, go ahead and plug them in there. So we got it pretty clean in there. And that's the sealing point where it seals up against that rubber plunger in the bottom of that little thing. So I'll put it together real quick. So it's all done. We'll go ahead and throw it on and we'll see if we can get it to start. One last thing we gotta do is put that banjo fitting back on with a new fuel line. So I'll get that done real quick. So we got a lot done on the bike. Not bad for one day's worth of work. So a couple things I was thinking about doing in the future, maybe another episode on this, is get the gas tank hooked up and plumbed in, new tubes and tires, and maybe a new seat cover, some grips, maybe some foot pegs, the rubbers that go over those, and then maybe just leave it all patinaed. So basically it looked like that, but with a nice little place for the bum, foot and hands, and maybe some tires that aren't totally beat. I did take it for a drive up and down the street, and the gearbox seems to work really well. Certain things about this were definitely a lot nicer than my other one that I had. So if you have one of these bikes, I hope that this maybe helped, I don't know, give you some information on what to do to get it running or fix a problem. Some of you might have noticed that I have a different side cover on. I did make this side cover out of another one that was busted over here, and I just hacksawed off the carb side. This is pretty handy when I want to work on the carburetor, because as you probably figured out with the whole side cover on, you can't adjust the carb worth the crap. So I put this on so it keeps the oil from the clutch basket spraying out while it's running, and then you can get in there and adjust stuff. I did end up having just 1.5 turns out from bottom seated, was fine on the pilot screw. I don't remember what notch it was actually on. I don't honestly care too much on the needle jet little needle thing. I did put some fresh oil in there. I didn't show you guys that, so I don't want you to think about driving it with no oil. There's a few more things we got to do on this. The exhaust is all crappy. All of the mounts are all broken. There's even a mount under here that's all busted. Anyways. So, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Lyle's Garage, and I hope to see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and push this and that.
Later.